Hello and welcome to Self-Made Author. This is Terry here, and tonight we have special guest Belinda Harris. Belinda Harris is the co-owner of Rocket Science HR and Rocket Employment at rocketemployment.com. She has over 15 years of experience working in the human resources field and an experience that includes training, interviewing skills, resume development, and writing. As a hiring professional, she knows the importance of making first impressions and the skills needed to win the interview. Belinda has a master's degree in human resource development and is certified as a senior professional in human resources. Belinda has over 12 years of experience working with people with disabilities. She is also the author of 3 books: The Honest and Direct Truth to Interviewing from an HR Perspective, The Honest and Direct Truth to Resumes from an HR Director Perspective, and her newest book, 15 Reasons Why You Did Not Get Hired. She offers career coaching, resume editing services, and her latest offering, 90 Days to Employment Journal. Welcome, Belinda Harris.
Thank you, Terry. I'm so happy to be here.
Absolutely wonderful. So let's dive right on in. Wow. Human resources. That is definitely an interesting field. What is your inspiration for getting into human resources?
So honestly, my bachelor's degree is in allied health. And when I was talking to my mom about I want to go back to school to get a master's, I didn't really have a specific um, subject that I wanted to go in. And she was like, what about human resources? So
Yeah.
I was listening to my mom's advice, and here I am all these years later. So my mom was the inspiration behind getting in the human resource field.
That is awesome. You know, human resources is definitely an interesting field. There's a lot of opportunity that's out there. Do you have a specific, I guess, I don't want to really say like market or niche because I don't really know like the right word, but is there like a specific section within human resources that you really focus on?
So mine would be more of a generalist, which means to do everything. So there are human
Hmm.
resource professionals who just focus on recruiting or just focus on benefits, but mine is a little bit of everything. So I've been departments of one or department of twos before. So I'm a generalist, is how I
Okay.
define.
That's awesome. You know, it's interesting that you can take basically a variety of knowledge and experience and present it in a great way designed to help people around the world to get basically to get ready for their first job or their next job.
Right.
So when you're sitting down with a customer or a client or you're trying to prepare somebody for that, how exactly do you go about doing that? Do you have like a set of questions? You know, how would you do that if somebody come into you looking for a job?
So if they were coming looking for help to get a job or interviewing with my company to get a job.
Basically, just in general, looking for a job.
Looking for a job. Okay.
Yeah.
So I would try to get them comfortable because and talk about not necessarily human resource things or
Mhm.
work related things, but just what their interests are. Because soon as they're comfortable is when they can be their true selves.
Ah.
So in interviewing all the time, I always try to get people to relax, take a deep breath,
Mhm.
I'm not gonna bite, you know,
Yeah.
talk about sports or something to loosen them up. And then we kind of get started. Then we get started.
Yeah. I mean,
The
when
process.
you're able to relax and everything, yeah. I mean, you can definitely kind of cut through a lot of things. You know, especially if someone's nervous. You know, at the end of the day, you know, somebody's, you know, they're in that situation where they're trying to get that job and this, that, and the other, and they really don't really know. Okay, what's the right thing to say? Should I say this? Should I say that? Should I present this? Should I present that? You know, it seems like there's a lot of questions and a lot of like, you know, I don't want to use the word gray area, but it just seems like there's a lot of confusion that's out there. And, you know, and that's where you step in to clear up that confusion and everything. So how do you steer somebody in the right direction when they either are lost, confused, or really don't know where to go to next?
So what I tell people is just, think about it. Every question is that's being asked is about you.
Mm,
Only you know the answer. And the
yes.
other thing too is that when you're nervous, HR professionals expect you to be nervous. So it may take you a minute to think about the question. Don't feel rushed. Like as soon as the HR person asks the question that you have to jump and answer. Take a deep
Mm,
breath and think about the answer. And then the
mm,
example I give is if you were to ask me, what did you have on yesterday? It's
mm.
gonna take me a minute to be like, what did I have on? So let alone you're asking some skill that I did a couple years ago. It takes time to think about what that skill is. So don't
Yeah.
feel rushed is you have to get something out.
Gosh, I don't even remember what I had on yesterday. That would be kind of an interesting question. It's like, I kind of go day by day, and every day it's kind of like a fresh start for me. Here's the interesting thing. So, we got this current situation that's going on within the world with the coronavirus and everything. And a lot of people really lost their jobs. Businesses are shutting down every single day, and, there's a lot of people that's out there struggling. From a human resources perspective, how would you advise someone looking for a job, especially in these times that we're in right now? It would definitely be tough.
Well, it is tough, because there are 35 million unemployed people.
Wow, that's a lot.
On the other hand, there are employers who are hiring. I mean, there are several employers who are hiring right now. And in this pandemic, some employers are thriving and are looking for a lot of employees.
Especially those within a virtual environment, because there seems to me like there was a huge shift and it also opened up a lot of opportunities too.
It was. I mean, things got turned all the way upside down, where companies who never would have pictured themselves working completely from home are now working completely from home and doing well. So there are a lot of, opportunities now. What I would tell somebody would be, look at your situation, look at your friends, let people know that you're looking for a job. That's a huge thing. So you want to network. So you want to make sure everybody knows. Make sure your resume is up to date. And this, most importantly, during this pandemic, what have you been doing? Have you picked up any new skills? Because when you do get the interview, that's going to be a question that's going to be asked. What have you been doing to keep it fresh? So to make sure that they're working on their skills.
So speaking of resumes, I for one definitely know writing a resume can absolutely be a daunting task. So I served in the military and I was active duty for 24 years. And when I got ready to retire, there was training that I had to go through, and there was specific things that I had to prepare and I had to get ready for. And one of those things was writing a resume. And I remember that one of the biggest takeaways for me was writing a resume for specific jobs. Okay. And I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, I'm over here looking for 50 jobs, and I wrote like 50 different resumes, and for me, it just seemed overwhelming. It seemed daunting. So what is the number one mistake that you see people making on resumes, and how would you recommend fixing that?
So the number one mistake, and it's not even about what you think it is. The number one mistake on resumes is the wrong contact information.
Oh, wow.
People put, they've changed numbers. If all I had was your resume and that's what you gave me, and that's the wrong number, how do I know that? There's no way.
That's crazy. You wouldn't think about that.
Would not think. And not checking your emails. Again, a lot of employers will respond via email. So if you're not one to check your email on a regular, you will miss opportunities. So contact information and contact information for phone number and email address. That's the number one. Now, errors as far as spelling, is probably number 3 is where I would put number 3. But those
what about social media?
So social media. So when we think about social media, if you're looking for a job, your social media needs to be either private or cleaned up. Those are the two, because we were when people, HR managers will look at social media to see sometimes what you have going on.
I can see that, and
the private parts.
I can see how that can be a detriment on one side, like you said, clean up. And I can also see how that can be a benefit, especially with LinkedIn. So I know Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, there's some stuff that's out there. But LinkedIn, for example, is really a more professional type of a network or type of social media. So what would you focus on? Would it be LinkedIn, or do you think there's a balance?
So as an HR person, I'm going to probably look at both. I'm looking at the Facebook page to make sure, hopefully, that it's locked and I can't see anything other than your name.
Yeah.
That it's cleaned up. And LinkedIn, I'm just going to see, your connections, what you have on there. Does your resume kind of match what your LinkedIn profile says? Because that's the other thing too. People will say, 10 years experience on their resume and 2 years experience on LinkedIn. It needs to match. It doesn't necessarily have to be the same exact wording, but it needs to be, it needs to match. The numbers need to match.
Do you think that someone could put too much on LinkedIn or not enough?
Yes, you can put not enough. You can put not enough on a resume too. So some people can put not enough. It's almost best to put more on LinkedIn and less on your resume. Your resume is a snapshot, a moment in time. LinkedIn, you can put a little bit more information on there.
Okay. Well, in your book, 15 Reasons Why You Did Not Get Hired, you talk about some really great points in that book right there. And what is your number one reason that people did not get the job?
So I would say that your references. A lot of employers ask for references. And I always tell people, be mindful of who your references are. Because when I interview someone and ask them, how did you hear about this job? Oh, Johnny, who works here, told me. Then I'm going to look at Johnny. And is Johnny a good employee? So if Johnny's a horrible employee, then you're not going to necessarily be my, go-to person. But if I love Johnny because he's great and he's on top of his, if he's Terry and on top of his game, like Terry, of course, Terry. Terry's not going to recommend, anybody to mess up his name. So references and your references not responding.
I can 100% relate to that. And I had some similar, I guess I kind of had not a situation, but I had something to where basically a reference, they remembered something and they got nervous and, under the fire of the interview, so to speak, it was like, bam. And whatever BAM was at that time, that can tend to come back on people as well too. So I can 100% kind of see your point. Because when I was getting ready to go into the military years ago, I was like, I didn't really know anybody. I was like friends, family, I really did not have a big list of people that I could just kind of pick from that'd be like, yeah, that would be a perfect person. That would be a candidate.
Right.
And and at the time that really kind of come back at me because I had someone that was a little salty with me 30 years ago and was like, yeah, Terry is, whatever the case. And of course it all got resolved and everything. So I can 100% relate to that right there. And over time I built not really an inner circle. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but basically I had built a great selection of references throughout all of the jobs that I had and the places that I had been. So that's a great point that you say references, because I 100% agree with that. And I can see how that can benefit you, but I also see how that can hurt you as well too.
Because I tell people, be mindful of your reference because they can hurt you.
So interviews. Here's the thing. Interviews is one of those things that doesn't really happen for everybody. You really got to put forth your best foot forward to get an interview. But when preparing for that interview, like I said, it's stressful. A lot of people don't get the interview, but how can someone set themselves apart from the crowd when they get ready for the interview or to get to the interview?
So for the interview, to get to the interview and for the interview, it's the small things. It's the small things that you need to pay attention to, because the small things, like back when we shake hands, I don't know if we'll ever shake hands again, but back when we shook hands, you want to make sure that you shook hands with everybody that's interviewing you when you came in, and then shake hands on your way out and thank them. It's the little things like be nice to the receptionist. And the reason why is that the receptionist can either be your cheerleader or she can be like, don't hire him. Because if you go in and you're nice to the receptionist, when it's over, they're going to be like, oh, he was really nice. He was blah, blah, blah. Or when the interview's over, the receptionist is going to be like, he was rude. He was a jerk. So be nice to everybody you come in contact with. It's the very little things that you don't think adds up. And so again, be nice to the receptionist or everybody you come in contact with. Back then you would want to shake hands. And now, even without shaking hands, thank them for their time. Thank them for taking time out to interview. interview. So it's a lot of little bitty things that add up that you can do, because you may make a mistake in the interview. You may say something that and you may not be the best candidate, but if you interview well, our motto is your resume gets you the interview, your interview skills land you the job. If you interview well and make that connection, they could pick you over somebody who could be better.
Yeah. So within an interview, what is more important? Is it how you look, how you communicate, how motivated you are? I mean, what is the most important aspect within an interview?
So, I mean, it's all three, believe it or not, they're all three equal. So if you can't tell me why I should hire you, if you can't articulate that, if you can't communicate that, I'm not going to hire you. If you can't tell me, then I don't know. If you come in not dressed appropriately, then for an interview, then it makes me think, what in the world are you going to wear to the job? So you have to be dressed appropriately, and then as far as you said, interview, what were the three things you said? Interview. So
you prepare for the interview, how well you dress, how well you communicate, how well you present information.
Right. And that you're presenting well, that you're putting your best foot forward. And that doesn't mean that you're not nervous, because we expect you to be nervous, but it means that you are sincere, that you're sincere and that you're as transparent as you can be in an interview.
So I know one of the biggest things, and this is one of the things that helped me during an interview, was knowing information about the company, because I use that to my advantage. So as I was answering questions, I was using a lot of their language, a lot of their standard operating procedure, a lot of their stuff. And it was funny, because one of the comments that was made during the interview was like, wow, you know this information more than the people we have here right now does. And of course, I had made a snarky comment that says, well, gosh, when do I get hired?
Right.
Kind of a thing. So making a comment like that, like a snarky remark or kind of a joking remark, do you think that could help you or hurt you?
So what I try to tell people is try to leave comedy out unless you're funny. If you're funny, if you're a natural funny guy and it's appropriate to fit there, then yes. A lot of people on the question, tell me about your strengths and weaknesses, and they'll say, I don't have any weaknesses, I'm perfect. As to be a joke, which the first time you hear is funny, but somebody who's been interviewing for a long time is like, that's, I smile, but that's not funny. So
I laugh at it because I actually seen that happen. So I was in an interview, and basically the question was asked of the person that was there in front to like say something. And it was like, and the person responded back, I don't have to say that stuff because I live it.
Right.
And like the room lit up it didn't really light up immediately, but like for a second, everybody just kind of looked like you could just hear a pin drop in the room. It was like, did this person really just say that? So have you been through interview processes and everything with someone?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What is the funniest thing you ever heard somebody say in an interview?
Let me see. I've heard some kind of sad things. Let me think of the funniest thing. So I think I was given an example of, you're going to be working with some parents who may not care for you, and they're like, you got to have thick skin. And she said, I would be like, you may not like me, but I like you, which I had never heard before in an interview, which was hilarious because it broke the ice for her. She ended up getting the job, but it was just like, okay, that was funny.
That actually happened to me once too. So I was doing some in processing of new people one time, and oh gosh, I can't remember what I said, but I had something similar like that happen to me. I was like, well, wait till you get to know me better, kind of a thing. And I was like, wait a second, man, I'm trying to like fill out your paperwork and in process you into this company and this, that, and the other. And you want to make like, I don't even know you yet. And you're already like coming on strong with, with the game.
Right.
And I have no idea what happened after that to the person, but it was just, it was hilarious. It was actually funny. So you mentioned something about like a bad thing. What's the worst thing you ever heard during an interview?
So I've had people cry in the interview. Not necessarily, because you're always, what question did I ask? Tell me about yourself, but people come in already emotional. So I've had people cry. I've had people tell things like why they should be hired here. This one lady gave me her whole history of she helped her husband get a job and he ended up cheating on her. And after she helped him with the business, I mean, she just went on into the detail, and I just was like, that's not the question. The question is, tell me, why you should be hired. And she just ran down this list. In an interview, I tell people, think of an iceberg. Don't come in there telling me your entire life story. Just answer the question, because I'm not going to pick you. If you're crying or if you are telling me, your husband cheated on you, I should not know that. We're strangers. Yeah. So those are kind of some sad things that I've heard. I've had a lady actually say, my daughter, I was interviewing her. My daughter would be perfect for this job. Would you hire me and her? Either.
That's crazy that, that people would do those types of things or say those types of things. I mean, I get it. You're nervous. You're under a lot of pressure, a lot of stress. And, you really kind of want to make sure that you say the right thing or whatever the case may be. So what would you recommend to calm somebody down? Like they're getting ready to go to the interview. They're just full of nerves or they're like obviously shaking. What would you recommend to calm somebody down before an interview?
So again, I would tell them to take a deep breath. Remember that all the answers because they're asking you questions about yourself. And I also say, have in a calm conversation. And what that means is, if you don't want it announced, if it was announced on the intercom, would you be embarrassed? If that lady was to tell the whole building that her husband cheated on her, all that, would you be embarrassed? Yes. Do you want the whole building to know? No. Then you should be telling me. So intercom conversations, and that helps focus it down on what you need to be talking about.
Okay. On your website, rocketemployment.com, you have this amazing free infographic that's on there. I really like that infographic. It has 3 things on there, but you mentioned one of those 3 things for not getting hired is that on your resume, you was not truthful. Can you share some examples of that and how to mitigate being untruthful on a resume? I mean, from my perspective, that's exactly what it is. After all, truth is kind of a perspective, but how do you sift through that? How do you mitigate that?
So what you want to do on your resume is, talk about, it should be your skills. Mm-hmm. If you didn't graduate for college, don't put you graduated for college. Mm-hmm. Put you attended, this was your major, but don't put that you graduated for college and that's what unfortunately some people will do. They didn't finish, and they went and they'll put on there like they have a degree when in reality they don't. And right. That's one small thing, and don't exaggerate on your experience. If you don't have a year of experience, put the year instead of putting 5 years, because then when I'm asking you 5 years experience worth, you can't answer. You can't answer the question. So be truthful. I interviewed a lady and hired a lady who told me she was an expert in Microsoft Excel and Access, which is what I was hiring for. She gave me some scenarios. I'm not an expert in Microsoft Excel Access. So I was like, okay, here we go. And she got hired and couldn't do the job because she didn't have that type of experience.
Right.
So, don't lie on your resume because it can come back to bite you.
So I'm good with computers. Sure, I can figure it out. I know everything about Access and I've actually had that happen. When you put someone on the spot like that, and they say, well, I got experience with, Access, for example. And that actually happened to me. I was like, I said, well, I'm good with software. I can know I know how to do this and I know how to code that and do this and that. So somebody grabbed me one time and showed me this gigantic database. And it was like, here, I want you to fix this. I'm like, okay, maybe I don't know Access as well as I think I do then.
Right.
Kind of a thing. It's really interesting. So if you could give somebody one golden nugget when preparing for a job interview, filling out the resume, I mean, I know it's kind of a wide variety, but if you could really just motivate and inspire someone with one absolutely golden nugget, what would that be?
To be persistent.
Okay.
To be persistent. And what that means is, my brother's 9 years younger than me. So when we were younger, I was the cool big sister. But he was a pest. And he would pester me and pester me. So when I say be persistent, you want to be persistent to make sure that you are professional when you're calling employers, that you're being persistent, that I'm interested in this position, but you're professional. Yeah. You're not pestering, but you're persistent. So be persistent in everything that you do. Persistent and consistent. You need to be consistent because it's not going to happen overnight. Yes. It takes you being persistent and consistent with the task.
I could 100% relate to that because, like I said, when I got ready to retire from the military, I think I sent off like 60 resumes. And it's frustrating because a lot of those, I never got anything back. I didn't get no calls, no emails, nothing. So I'm sitting here like, gosh, I submitted 60 resumes. I expected to get 60 something, whether it's a yes, no, maybe, go jump somewhere or whatever the case, but it just didn't happen. Okay. And I got to a point to where I really just wanted to figure out, well, what was going on. So I made a phone call one time. I called and was like, hey, did you guys get my resume? Did you get this? Did you get that? And it was interesting because I almost got through to the person that I needed to before they just kind of cut me off because I was too aggressive. Mm-hmm. Do you think that somebody could be too aggressive within an interview or not an interview, but in a job hunt?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think they can be, but they need to be persistent. And okay. So I'll give a good example. So you sent out 60 resumes.
Yes.
I think of resumes as fishing bait. So there's a lot of different fishing bait. There's bread, which is what I use because I don't like worms, but worms, there's crickets, and there's fish. So depending on what you're going after is what bait you put on. You throw it in the water, you reel it in. If you don't get anything, then you change the bait. So you fish till you get something. You have to be consistent. When you call a person to say, can you tell me about the status of my application? I hate that statement because no, I sure can't. I have 300 resumes. I don't know your status. But what you can say is, can you tell me if that position's been filled? Can you tell me are they setting up interviews for that position? Because I'm interested. That's what you can say. I don't have a status. I don't know what to tell you. The status is what? I got it or I didn't. I got 300, so I don't know. But I can tell you if we're setting up interviews. I can tell you if the position is filled. Okay. So when you call, you want to call with a purpose. So like you said, hey, have you gotten it? Somebody's probably not going to answer that either because I don't know if I gotten it. I got a lot of resumes.
Right.
But if you say, are you interviewing? I'm interested. I had a lady, and I kid you not, the position she was going for at the time, you had to live in that area. And she called me every month for a year because we never had an opening in that area. Every month for a year. And she was always professional. Now, she left a message because she couldn't always reach the HR person. She would leave a message. Hey, this is Terry. I'm just calling to let you know I'm still interested. For a year. When an opening came, and she was always professional. When an opening came in that area, who did I think about? Her. Because she was persistent. Now, it was a year before opening came, but she was persistent. And she was consistent. Yeah. So she was the first person I was like, that's who I want to call in. And she was always professional. So
that is absolutely amazing. Well, Belinda, thank you for joining me here today. Honestly, it was a lot of great information, a lot of good insight, and I know that that's going to help a lot of people out. So thank you for joining me here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate this.
All right. So thank you for watching today. And if you would like to connect with more from Belinda Harris, you can do so at rocketemployment.com. There you will find her books, her coaching program, resume editing services, 90 Days to Employment Journal, and a whole lot more. She can also be found on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I'll have the links below in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.